a lot of people hear the term Medicaid and they think, oh, that's just for extremely poor people. And that's probably what the government would like you to think, but it's really honestly how most of the middle class pays for care, just because the cost of care is just so high and people don't realize it.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Practical Wealth Show. So today I'm talking with, so let me give you the title for our show, just to get the set this up. We're going to talk about elder law. So I'm going to talk about, a lot of you have of parents or grandparents that are in a situation, and we're going to talk about Medicaid probate crisis, right? If we don't pre-plan, there's things that you can still do, Medicaid. So we're going to hit all that kind of stuff because, we want to get information out there. So let me tell you about our guest today. So I have Aaron R. Miller. He's an award-winning elder law and estate planning attorney and the founder of Miller Law Office. He's voted the best law firm in Plano. That's Texas, right? Plano, Texas?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Okay. And for 4 years running. And after watching his grandparents lose their life savings to nursing home costs, Aaron built a practice that helps families avoid that outcome using Medicare planning, trust, and clear logical design to protect cash flow and family harmony. If you care about keeping what you've built, this show matters. Aaron, welcome to the Practical Wealth Show.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me today.
Yes, my pleasure. So tell them what I didn't tell them, and then I have a few thoughts I want to get out, and let's just basically, I forgot to tell you before the show. My show is like us. We're having a beer somewhere. We're just talking, and they get to listen in. So,
all right, fair enough.
So anything I didn't tell them that you want to share?
I know. I think that about covers it. I really, really enjoy estate planning. I did a lot of different things before I got into this, but I used to tell people when I worked for a big litigation firm, I made the world safe for the big 5 accounting firms, and now I get to help everyone's mom and dad make sure that their golden years are lived as comfortably as possible.
So let's talk about that. I'm glad you said that. That's a good segue. So, because your grandparents experienced a change, your grandparents' experience, so let's talk about that. Changed your career trajectory. And so that being said, so I want to tell about that. And then what do you think is just starting off with the number one mistake that families make that puts them on the same path?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that I'll answer that question really quickly. I think the number one mistake families make is, and it's not really their fault, they just don't know what they don't know. And that's what happened to my family. So when I was a kid, we went and visited my grandparents. They lived in Montrose, Colorado, on the western side of Colorado, and they were farmers. And my grandfather was a farmer all his life. We were there, and we were getting ready to leave on the Saturday. I woke up that morning expecting us to get ready to load up in the car. I found out that my grandmother had had a heart attack in the middle of the night, and it got so bad that my dad had held his mother in his arms, and he thought he'd lost her. Thankfully, they were able to get her to the hospital. And this was back when, nowadays you have a heart attack, it seems like they throw you in the hospital, they zip you out, under your heart, they mess around with a little bit, zip you back up, and send you back home after a few days. But this one, she was there for, I want to say probably a month or so, maybe a couple of months. And when she got home, things seemed to be pretty good. But over the next few months after that, over the next year or so, she started declining mentally. And I'm not sure if they were related, just coincidental, but my grandfather started finding where my grandmother had stuck her purse in the freezer, or her keys behind the books, or she'd unscrew the heating air return event and put her slippers down through there. And things just started getting more and more and more of a problem, until one day I remember my dad got a phone call from his father, from my grandfather, and he said he had finally had to put my grandmother in a nursing home. And I know, dealing with my clients, that was probably the worst day in his life. And nobody had talked to him about the different ways to pay for care. So my grandmother lived another 10 years in a nursing home. And every month, my grandfather would go down, pull out his wallet, and pay for her care because, that's what he did. He was there to take care of his wife. And again, like I said, nobody talked to him about the different ways to pay for care. My grandfather was a farmer. He was no stranger to government benefits programs, but he'd never heard of this. And then my grandmother passed away. And I want to say about 3 or 4 years later, my grandfather needed care. But by then there was no money left over. So my dad, my aunt, and my uncle all had to dip into their savings, their retirement, so that they could pay for his care. And that's something that's really, honestly, we still feel it to this day. That was probably 20 or 30 years ago. We still feel it to this day because, when my mother needed money for care, thankfully she had inherited money from her father, and there was that, but there was no other money. I mean, it's been depleted. Right. And so I think that happens with a lot of families. And I think that's the biggest problem that people have is they just don't know what's out there. They just don't know the different programs. So that's why I'm here. That's why I love talking about these type of things, so that people at least have an understanding. They have an idea of, oh, maybe we ought to talk to somebody about this and we can get some help.
Yeah. So let's break it down. What actually pays for long-term care? Is it cash, long-term? Most people don't like long-term care insurance, so very few people have it. Medicaid, VA benefits, health insurance. We found out that doesn't do it, the hard way with my dad. And, and when should each be considered?
Well, there's 3 primary ways to pay for care. You can always private pay, and that's what my grandfather did. And if you've got the money, that's a great way to do it because it gives you the most options, and often you can get a better care.
Right.
Now, the thing about private pay is what happens if you run out of money, or what happens if you spend all the money and there's none left over for your spouse, which is what happened in my family.
Right.
Well, then there's a problem. So other ways to pay for care, my actual favorite way, you mentioned it, is long-term care insurance. What I love about long-term care insurance is you could pay for at-home care, you could pay for memory care, you could pay for a lot of different types of places where you can get care that you can't really get if you're on one of the government programs. So long-term care insurance is again my favorite way to do it. Now, to someone who sells insurance or who's in the industry, that is a very particular product, long-term care insurance. But there are some newer hybrid things that are out there based on, as I'm sure you know, based on insurance policies, like whole life insurance policies or annuities, something like that. And what they do is they'll add a long-term care rider onto that, so that if you get sick and you need some form of care, this could help pay for that.
Yeah, I was thinking that, because those of y'all listeners know, that we do insurance, we teach infinite banking, but before that, we teach a concept called maximum protection. So a lot of times you can actually get more coverage if you focus on death benefit or life insurance because you have built-in riders. So not necessarily pure long-term care, but chronic illness. Right?
Yeah.
And so if you can't perform 2 to 6 ADLs, the same thing that trigger long-term care policy trigger it. And that is one way, because a lot of people that's probably the best way, the long-term care, but they don't want to pay for it because they don't want to pay for a long time for something they think they might or may not ever use. Where at least with life insurance, I can kill several birds with one stone. And if you die, boom. If you don't die, you got access to money, you got cash values, and yada yada. So there's a way to do that. But insurance is all about transferring risk. And to your point, I don't think they know the risk or some of the other stuff. So that's one way. So let's talk about the other one. So Medicaid or VA benefits, or what are some of the other things that are out there?
Yeah. So there's government benefits. That's another way to help pay for care. A lot of people hear Medicare. A lot of people think Medicare will pay for care, and unfortunately, it doesn't really, not for long term anyway. You can get a limited benefit if you, let's say, if you fall down, break a hip, go to a hospital, stay 3 nights, and then you can get up to 100 days of care. Not guaranteed. First 20 days are covered. Day 21 through day 100, if you get that, Medicare asks for a copay. So you could supplement that with a Medigap insurance or things like that, which I encourage people to get that.
Yeah.
But that's what a lot of people think Medicare pays for long-term care, and unfortunately it doesn't. So
we found out the hard way because my father got sick. It was like, oh, we have this. It's like, this is if you go into the hospital. It doesn't cover a home health aid, you know, because most people really want to stay in their home, you know, if possible, and not go to a nursing home. But even the help costs money. Yeah, and that's one reason why I love long-term care insurance, is because they can help you stay at home. Because honestly, nobody wants to go to a nursing home, especially if you don't have to. If you could age at home, maybe bringing in some help, that's going to be often going to be most comfortable for people. But if you can't have that, then there's 2 other types of government benefits. You've got what's called VA aid and attendance. If you're a veteran, if you served 90 days active duty, 1 day during a time of war, and you have a discharge other than dishonorable, then you can get qualified for this type of benefits. And the advantage of that is you're not really limited to a nursing home. If you got care at home, it would pay for that. If you needed to go assisted living or memory care, it would pay for that. If the veterans passed away and the surviving spouse has not remarried, then the surviving spouse can get some benefit. Really? Now, the downside of this benefit is it's not a whole lot of money. I haven't looked at it recently, but I want to say it's about $1,500, $1,600 a month for a veteran. It's lower money if you're a spouse of a veteran and your veteran spouse is deceased. But it is, again, it's a great benefit. Not a lot of people know about it. Right. It's harder to get now because of some of the rule changes that Medicaid did, both in terms of qualifications, and also they make it harder for people like me to help veterans get benefits. I think that's by design. But that is a great benefit. Again, 90 days active duty, 1 day during a time of war, discharge other than dishonorable. And if the veterans passed away, the surviving spouse, as long as they haven't remarried, then they still could get benefits. I guarantee you most people don't know that.
Yeah. And, and Medicaid and the VA doesn't really talk about it, or if they do talk about it, they don't explain how to get qualified. Like Medicaid, and we'll go into the details on that in a second, but there's certain things that you have to qualify in addition to the military test that we just did. Right. And if you have too much money, Medicaid won't tell you, or a VA won't tell you how to fix that problem. And so what you really want is an attorney, somebody who's accredited with the VA, who understands how to make it all work. There are other people out there that do help veterans, which are great, except for a lot of times they look at more short-term issues. So they can, because the programs are a little bit different between VA and Medicaid, there is things that you can do to qualify for VA benefits that will completely mess up your Medicaid benefits. Wow. Which it can be a problem because, unfortunately, with the VA benefits, it's not enough for most people to get the VA benefit and go into a nursing home, just because the cost of a nursing home is so high. So you just got to be careful on who you're taking your advice from. But it is definitely a great benefit.
But now they can call you because
that's right. Well, I unfortunately I gave up my VA accreditation a few years ago, just again because they just made it so hard for me to help those veterans. Okay.
At least we can give them some questions to help them figure out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. There's places you can go to find out who's accredited and that kind of thing. But it's like I said, it's a great benefit.
All these things require specialists that this is what they do, you know. And like what I like to do is my wife's an attorney. She says stay in your lane, right?
Yeah.
But talking to you, now I know enough to know that, okay, now we got to find somebody to help you with this. So it's just a matter of knowing that, all right, there is, I mean, you know, $1,500 is, you know, costs way more than that, but it beats a poke in the eye. I mean, so if
Oh
you can
yeah,
pull,
yeah.
right, if you can
Well,
pull
yeah,
together 2 or 3, 4 things,
yep,
that's a benefit.
yep, absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's you know, if you're in a nursing home, it wouldn't go very far. We'd look at a different benefit, but it definitely helps with assisted living or memory care, or like I said, at-home care. It can be, it's life-changing sometimes. So it's an amazing benefit. The downside is you have to deal with the VA. So
Right. Let's pivot a bit. So let's say for higher earners or business owners, how is there a way to plan so that for, you know, so Medicaid is even on the, if it is, it should it be on the table and without committing fraud or triggering look back penalties
yeah,
that
yeah,
people are
yeah,
always trying to give away all my money and, you know, trying to do all this gray
yes.
area stuff, let's say.
Yeah, well, this isn't gray area in any way, shape, or form. This is kind of like, you know, when you pay your taxes, nobody pays taxes and on your total gross. There are deductions, right? You have above the line deductions, you have below the line deductions, and you've got finally, after you apply all the laws and all the rules, that's what you pay your taxes on. It's kind of the same thing. There's certain rules and certain things that are in place. We just use them, and what we do is we convert countable assets to non-countable assets.
Okay.
And so a lot of people hear the term Medicaid and they think, oh, that's just for extremely poor people. And that's probably what the government would like you to think, but it's really honestly how most of the middle class pays for care, just because the cost of care is just so high and people don't realize it. Now, if you've got somebody who has a business or has some other things, then my first suggestion would be, let's look at some of the long-term care or the hybrid policies first, because again, that's going to give you the more options. But if that, for whatever reason, isn't on the table, for example, my mother, when she was, I think she was 62, 63 years old, she retired from the state of Alaska. And she had the opportunity to get long-term care insurance for her and my dad. I believe it was $200 total. It might have been for each one of them, but whatever it was, my parents kind of told me, look, we can't afford it. And I get it. You know, there wasn't a lot of money. Unfortunately, fast forward about 5 or 6 years, and then my mother needed memory care, and we were dipping into her savings that she inherited from her father to the tune of about $7,500 a month.
Wow.
And that's actually pretty low. Some states can be a lot higher. But so long-term care insurance is my first thing I would look at. If we can't do that for whatever reason, whether it's health reasons or just we don't want to afford it, then something we can do is we can do a special irrevocable trust. And what that does is that takes the money out of their hands and puts it, kind of sets it to a side. Now, you mentioned something called a 5-year look back. What that is if you go into a nursing home and you apply for Medicaid, the government's going to look and see if you've given any money away, if you've done anything with your money, and you've gotten what's called less than fair market value in return. Basically, have you gifted it away? And if you put your money in this irrevocable trust, that does trigger a potential 5-year look back period. And what that means is if you've given any money away in the last 5 years, Medicaid is going to say, well, you know what? You're otherwise qualified to get this benefit, but because you gave that money away, we're going to impose a penalty on you. And what that means is for a certain period of time, we're going to not pay for Medicaid benefits. You're just going to have to figure out how to come up with that money. And so with this trust that we put together for people, we put money in this trust. We hope they make it past 5 years, but if they don't, there's ways we can undo it and then go ahead and convert a pre-plan, which is mom might be in a nursing home down the road, to a crisis plan, meaning mom's in a nursing home now. And so we have to do something about it. But every state has different rules on what's countable and not countable. And obviously different people have different things. So sometimes a business may actually not be a countable asset. It just really depends on a lot of different factors. So everybody's unique.
When do they? So we help people as part of our process get revocable trust, right? And explain the difference, and when do they need what? Is it either or? Is it both? Is it one or, in your opinion, other? Because to me, if it's irrevocable, does that mean it's out of your control now?
Yeah. So real quick, the difference between a revocable and irrevocable trust. A revocable trust.
I know I'm gonna get those questions, right? So
no, great questions. Yeah. So a revocable trust is a trust you can change, you can blow up, you can do whatever you want to at any time. It's like an open box. Whatever you put into it, you can take back out of it.
Okay.
It does not give you creditor protection. So because you can take money out of it, a creditor can force you to take money out of it. An irrevocable trust, traditionally, they were done for estate tax purposes. In other words, if you had enough money, the government would impose a tax on you after you pass away. Largely, that's changed for most Americans. I believe I saw the latest Big Beautiful Bill changed the estate tax limit from whatever it was now to 15 million per person, 30 million per couple, which is going to be indexed for inflation. So that's just going to keep going up. I have not heard if there's if that's going to expire. Before that bill, it was the current rules were supposed to expire at the end of the year, and we were going to go back to about 6 million per person, which still, honestly, most Americans wouldn't have to worry about it. But traditionally, irrevocable trusts were done for estate tax purposes. Well, if you don't have to worry about estate tax, there's a lot of rules and things that you don't have to worry about. And one of those is we can put money into it, and the person that creates it could still be in charge of that. Could be what we call a trustee of that. So they still have control. Now, what we can't do is we can't have it so that they're a beneficiary of this trust. So in other words, they can't take that money out. Once they've put the money in the trust, they can't take it back out and put it in their own pocket, at least not directly. Often what we'll do with these particular type of trusts, we'll have a lifetime beneficiary. So we could give money to one of the kids, for example, and they'll hold on to it for a while. If they choose to give that money back to mom and dad, that's their choice. So an irrevocable trust, I guess I didn't explain this as well, is basically a trust that you've given up the right to something. It's a closed box. You can't put your hand back in it and get the money out and put it back in your pocket. With these irrevocable trusts, we often will make the person that creates the trust, they can still be the trustee, still be in charge of it. They can make changes to it. So if they gave some money to a kid, and let's say the kid comes back a year later with this nice tan, they go, "Hey, mom and dad, I appreciate you giving me that $20,000. It's a funny thing though. As soon as you gave me that money, I got this email for a round the world trip for $19,995. And so here's your $5 back. I'm looking forward to you kicking off, and I can inherit the rest of my money."
Right.
So with this particular trust, we could actually change the beneficiary. You can say, listen, Junior, unless you cross my palm with the rest of that $19,995 that I gave you, that's all the money you're going to see. So we call that a soft hammer. So we're able to make some changes to it. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's what we're pre-planning.
Okay. So let me ask you. So this kind of leads into the next question I was thinking about. You kind of answered part of it, but I just want to ask it so that if I miss something. So what are the must-have documents that, for that ready for a ready today plan, not theory, which clause, in which clauses do you see that are missed a lot or all the time?
If we're talking just general estate planning, I believe either a will or a trust is going to be either a will or trust is going to be the backbone of your estate plan. Now, whether a will or a trust is better for a particular individual, really just depends on kind of what assets they have and how things, how they want things to go. Generally, I'm a believer in revocable living trust because I think it's a smoother process for the family after you pass away. I usually tell people, you can go. I don't know if you remember in the 80s there was this car called a Yugo. It was made in the former Yugoslavia, right?
I do actually. Yeah, I'm old.
yeah. And I don't remember how much those cars went for, but they were pretty cheap. And usually when I talk with clients, they remember the ads at least. I don't remember seeing very many of those cars. And I tell people, look, you can go down the road in a Yugo or you can go down the road in a Mercedes SUV. You know, they're both probably going to get you where you want to go, but the question is how many bumps you're going to feel along the way. And a Mercedes SUV is more like the revocable living trust. I like trust because people often think they're buying trust when they buy a will, because they think a will, if they have a will, they don't have to go through the probate process. And unfortunately, to make a will work, it's just a piece of paper until it goes through the probate process. So, so that's kind of the basic first decision somebody makes is, do we want to build their estate plan around a trust or a will? Other documents that are included that are good to have is a financial power of attorney. So someone who can manage your finances for you. Even if you have a trust, it's good to have one of these in place, because there's not only manage finances that are outside of the trust, but sign contracts for you, things like that. Medical power of attorney. And I'm going to give you I'm in Texas. I'll give you the Texas term. Sometimes you might hear healthcare proxy or something like that. But in Texas, we call it a medical power of attorney. And that's a document who can make medical decisions for us if we cannot make them for ourselves. I like to do a HIPAA release. HIPAA is a law that says your medical information is private unless you say otherwise. And so what I want to do is I want to put everybody on the medical power of attorney on the HIPAA release, because I don't want to put somebody in the position to be able to make medical decisions, but not being able to get the information they need to make those decisions. And like I tell my clients, doctors will probably talk to that agent under that medical power of attorney, but I'm not in the business of relying on I'm going to make sure that happens. That way we throw that document in as well.
There you go.
I like a document called the Declaration of Guardian in the event of later incapacity. Long title. It just says, Judge, I'm good today. If I need a guardian at some point in the future, this is who I want it to be. Other states might call it a conservatorship, for example. You viewers might listen, or might remember Britney Spears, and her father was her conservative for a while. A living will. In Texas, we call it a directive to physicians. I suspect every state probably has a different name for it. But what that is a document that says, listen, if I am in a hospital on life support, and life support's the only thing keeping me alive, and I can't communicate, then I can make a decision now that if I'm in that position, what I want to happen. And there's two types of conditions. So if I'm in a hospital on life support, the only thing keeping me alive, I can't communicate, and doctors don't think that will change, then they're going to look and see if I have a terminal condition or an irreversible condition. Terminal condition is something you're expected to pass away from within the next 6 months, something horrible like pancreatic cancer, liver cancer, bad car, something that moves pretty quick. Irreversible condition is something expected to pass away from eventually. So if you remember Terry Schiavo, a lady over in Florida in the 80s, 90s, somewhere around in there, she was on life support for like 15, 16 years. And if she would have had one of these documents,
because the husband wanted to, for lack of a word, pull the plug, and the parents didn't want to. But
you got it exactly right.
Bleeding him dry, and she wasn't going to get better. They see TV, and all of a sudden you miraculously wake up out your coma, and and you don't want it not to happen, but you can go broke and ruin families. It was
a big fight. It was a big fight between the husband.
I remember that. I was a kid. That was like 87. It was a long time ago. I remember I was like in high school or college. It
was a while. And the problem was because we had the husband who it took about 3 or 4 years for her to be on life support before finally goes, well, you know what? I think she wanted to be off life support. And then you had mom and dad who were like, no, that's against her religion. She would never have wanted to be on life support. So that's why we had the fight. Eventually the husband won and they took her off of life support. But when I'm talking with audiences, I always ask them, husband saying, take her off life support. We got mom and dad saying, keep her on, take her off, keep her on, take her on, keep her off. What do we not know?
Right.
We don't know what Terry wanted, right?
What did she want? Yeah,
exactly. And this makes sure. A lot of what I do is, there mainly two things. Number one, making sure things are as smooth as possible for the family. And number two, just letting everybody know what your wishes are.
Right.
Just letting everybody know what you want to happen. And so that way, nobody has to second guess. And then there's one document that we also do after that. In Texas, it's a newer document. It's called Appointment of Agent for Disposition of Remains. I suspect every state probably has something similar. It's this particular document in Texas doesn't say whether you want to be buried or cremated, just who's going to be in charge of it. Again, we don't want fights. Even if you have a prepaid funeral, it's a really good document to have, because otherwise, before anything happens, the spouse or the kids, if the spouse is passed, are going to have to agree that this is what's going to happen with mom or dad's remains. So those are the documents I recommend. Now, if we were pre-planning, we'll throw in an irrevocable trust as well. I think you were asking me earlier, do you have one or both? It really just depends. Depends on kind of what we're trying to do.
Okay. Does this change at all? What you have a lot of blended families.
Yeah.
And
Blended,
and sometimes they forget to change beneficiaries. I mean, do you know all that kind of stuff? I'm sure you've seen that. What?
Yeah.
Any tips for those people that they should be thinking about that they might not be thinking about?
Yeah. So blended families is really important to talk with an estate planning attorney because again, every state's different. For example, in Texas, if you've got a blended family, if you pass away without an estate plan, then your half of the estate, your stuff, doesn't go to your spouse, it goes to your kids. And so whether if you have any kids from a previous relationship, now if all your kids are your spouse's kids, then generally speaking, your spouse is going to get it, but not always the case. It is very complicated, unfortunately. But yeah, so in a blended family, you definitely want to talk with an estate planning attorney to make sure things go the way you want to. And what I've found is people think that the law is whatever makes sense to them. Sometimes people go, well, I'm remarried. I want everything to go to my wife. Or yeah, I have kids from previous, before I got married, and I want everything to go to my kids. Well,
unless you say so, it's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to put it down in writing. Yeah. So let's talk to. This is also so good. I just was thinking about what do people want to know? What do I get asked about? So I'm just kind of firing this stuff at you so we can get it out there. Let's talk about asset protection versus access to capital. I'm big on access to capital, and so how do you preserve? Is it possible to preserve eligibility while keeping liquidity for? I hate to say opportunities at that point because it's really more emergencies, but my audience hates trapped money, right? So
okay.
And is there a way to broach that? And how could they or should they be thinking about that?
Yeah. So
in context of what we're talking about.
Yeah. So with the irrevocable trust that I'm talking about, the assets that you put into it or how you invest the assets, once it's in the trust, it doesn't matter. So you can invest it in CDs or you can invest it in, whatever it is that makes sense to you. You could still grow. You've already incurred whatever penalty you're going to get based on the value of the money of the assets that gets put into the trust. But once it's put into the trust, if you sell the IBM shares, you want to buy Apple, and Apple, quadruples in price, then it doesn't matter. So it's with this particular trust, it gives you choices in how you invest. Now, once you grow it, you're not a beneficiary on the out of the trust. So we got to be creative in how we get it back out. But there's no limitations on like what you can invest in.
Okay. Let's talk. I have two more questions. Three questions. All right. So let's talk about timing now. I just kind of ordered these in my notes. If a parent's health is declining now, what can be done, or can anything be done in like the next 30, 60, 90 days that actually moves the needle? So I guess we're into crisis planning, with that.
Well, it depends. So sooner it's always better than later. If health is declining and we think, well, yes, it's declining, but you know, it might take a while, or we don't know if it's going to be fast or not, or we think, at least the way things look like now, it might be last longer than 5 years. Then we probably would go ahead and do an irrevocable trust. Or even if we think about there's a 50-50 shot of making it 5 years, because again, if we make 3 years into it, there's ways we can undo it and still get qualified. But if we're thinking, yeah, she's probably going to be in a nursing home in the next 6 months, then we're going to switch over to crisis planning. Okay. And I can go into real quickly the high level of qualifications for that if you want to. But
because we were talking about it. Well, what is it? Yeah, that's all.
Yeah. So for Medicaid, Medicaid's a federal program, but it kind of gives guardrails. Each state has a little bit different way they interpret it. So I'll give you the Texas version. Just understand the viewers that there are different, slightly different variations. But basically, there's 3 tests. You have a health test, an income test, and an asset test. And a health test, what they do is they look at the person's activities of daily living. ADL is what we talked about earlier. So you have problems feeding yourself, bathing yourself, clothing yourself, going to the bathroom by yourself, and moving around by yourself. And going to the bathroom by yourself is both being continent and being able to get on and off the toilet. Right. And so if you have problems in both of those areas, you're going to qualify under the health test. The income test in Texas, what they're going to do is they're going to look and see if you have above or below about $2,900 a month in income. And Texas is what we call an income cap state. Not every state is, but that means if you have too much money, technically you do not qualify. If that is the case, then we put something called a Miller Trust. It's not named after me, unfortunately. Also known as a qualified income trust, and it's just a way to make sure that we're below the threshold amount. And that's not something we do ahead of time. That's something usually we just do when we're doing an application.
Okay.
If you are married, then we'll look and see if how much income the married spouse has. As far as I know, New York is the only state that requires the well spouse to contribute to the cost of care to the sick spouse. Although I believe most, if not all, of the other states just look at the applicant's income for determining eligibility. But the reason why we look at the well spouse's income is, at least in Texas and a lot of other states, if you are below a certain amount, what we'll do is we'll take some of the income from the sick spouse and give it to the well spouse so they can get up to that amount. And that is a big relief to a lot of people, because they think they're going to have to, pay everything into the nursing home, and particularly the surviving, if the husband goes into the nursing home, a lot of times they're the ones that have the higher Social Security than the wife. So,
right.
So she can get part of his income. What'll happen next is that they will do a copay analysis, an applied income analysis. So even if you are on Medicaid, you will have to pay something, more than likely. They take your gross income, they subtract out your Medicare Part B, any other health insurance you have, whether it's Part C or D or some sort of supplemental plan.
Right.
You get to keep what's called a personal needs allowance. You can spend in Texas. They just raised it from $60 a year to $60 a month to $75 a month. Other states are about that. So you can spend however you can go wild on $75
a month. Lord have mercy. Okay.
Yeah. And then if your well spouse, if you're married, if they need some of that money to get them up to that floor, they'll take that out. And whatever's left over goes to the nursing home. And then real quick, the asset test, that's usually where the things can get difficult. But if you're single, you cannot have more than $2,000 of countable assets. Now, not every asset is countable. A house, for example, is not, at least in Texas. But you still want to do something to keep it out of Medicaid state recovery, which is another discussion. But if you're married, then what they'll do, each state is a little different. In Texas, we have what's called a sliding scale. If you have between about 30, we'll call it 32,000 and about 100 and close to 150,000, what they'll do is the first day of the month that one spouse goes into a nursing home. So we're recording today's the 22nd. So they're going to look at the first of the month, even if they go in today, what their assets were. They'll add it all up and divide it by 2. And if that number is between the 32 and the 150,000, that's the amount of money that the well spouse gets to keep. The rest of it we have to convert, and we do that different ways, and depends on just what state you're in. But it's so that's the quick and dirty, like how Medicaid works.
That is fascinating. You helped a lot of people out there. Because I'm putting this into the title of the show, Family Harmony.
Yeah.
Right. So scripts or steps you could give clients to prevent the clashing sibling war over money and caregiving decisions. Anyway, that you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that obviously pre-planning is going to give you the most benefit. I tell folks, look, if you don't plan, a plan will be created for you, whether you give input to it or not, 100%. And it's always better. Plus, as parents, we wear a lot of hats, and one of the hats we wear is referee hat. Right. And so when we're gone, the referee's not there. That's when you have a lot of like, oh, well, I remember back when we were 3, mom gave you the bigger popsicle and she's always loved you better. And so I'm going to do this now. Having a pre-plan, a plan in place is a way we can kind of keep our referee hat on as long as possible. But also, particularly if we're talking crisis planning, someone's in a nursing home, someone needs care, to the extent that we can bring the family together so they all understand what's going on, that's obviously better. Now, some cases we can't, right? Because there's been so much bad history, there's been so much animosity, there's really not much we can do there at that point. But assuming the family's been, more or less together, cohesive up until this point, the better we can bring other people in, everybody in, to make sure that they're all on the same page. It's always going to be better for family harmony for sure.
Okay, awesome. And finally, are there any? And then I want you to tell them how to. After I ask this question, I want you. Then you can segue. I want you to tell them how to reach you, how to follow what you're doing, and if you can help them. But are there any red flags when hiring an elder law attorney? And how should a family vet the right fit, and what questions to expose competence fast?
Got it. Yeah, you want somebody that has been doing elder law, Medicaid planning for a long time. You want somebody that has experience, that it's not their first go around. I mean, obviously, attorneys everybody starts somewhere, right? But you probably rather it not be on you. Right, exactly. There is a group of attorneys called National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, and they are people who are interested in elder law, attorneys who work in the field. But even then, just membership of that doesn't necessarily mean they know what they're doing. Right. Just because they might just be interested in it. So you want to find out like how many cases they do on a regular basis. I think an elder law attorney that also does actual applications for people as well has an advantage, because they've seen both sides of it. So we've seen the planning ahead of time versus the now we have to figure out how to get qualified for care. I know from my own experience, my ability to counsel clients and my ability to understand how things actually play out got so much better when I started doing applications and starting dealing with Medicaid and dealing with all the different things that come up. So you really want somebody that has been around the block a few times. I think is kind of the short version of that.
Not their first rodeo.
Exactly.
Oh, Aaron, this has been fantastic. So Aaron, tell them first, this is my catch-all to make sure I didn't mess up anything. I think I got a lot out of you, so I appreciate your time today. But,
yeah, no worries.
Anything I didn't ask, I should have asked, or anything I didn't lay up that you want to say, you can put that out there, and then tell them how to follow you, get in touch with you, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
like to have him do.
I appreciate that. I think we cover most of it. I think the bottom line is people just need to know there's no such thing as too early for planning, no such thing as too late. A lot of times I'll hear people that tell me, oh, well, we put mom in the nursing home 3 years ago, and they said that we don't need to do anything. Mom has too much money. And now we spent all mom's money, and so we're ready to get some help getting qualified for benefits.
Right.
It's not too late, but we could have helped so much earlier, and help preserve money for people. So if you've got a loved one you're concerned about, particularly as we come up in the holidays here in a few months, if you go home and mom maybe try to reach for the nutmeg when she was making the pumpkin pie and grab the red chili powder instead, you start noticing things. That would be the time to start calling an elder law attorney and asking them, what options are. As for me, I'm on the web at aaronmillerlaw.com. That's AARONMILLERLAW.com. We also have a YouTube channel. I think it's a Miller Law Office PLLC Plano or something like that. I can give you the links on that. But what I do is I try to give a lot of good information out there for people so they can just understand. So they don't go through what my family did, was just spending all their money down because they just didn't know any better.
I mean, it's and then it's just so much stuff going on because most, especially not in baby boomers, younger than baby boomers, they have baby boomer parents, and then they got the boomerang kids, and you're in the sandwich taking care of both.
Sandwich generation.
According to the Federal Reserve, most Americans are saving less than 4% of their income.
Yeah.
And even, was it like some crazy number, 67% of people that make $100,000 a year live paycheck to paycheck. I mean, so it's just something's got to give. So you just have to think through this stuff and get professionals on your team. So Aaron and I are the two of the players on your team. Just in case you didn't know who that was, is me as this quarterback. Right? No, just kidding.
Yep.
I'm not kidding. But but the idea is, I'm so glad we did this because we got a lot out there, because you don't know what you don't know, and nobody knows everything. And so where do you go? I mean, so if you follow, I would follow, if it's on your mind, I'll have Aaron's stuff in the show notes, and search them on. You can find them on YouTube, right? And you can look up his firm. It'll come up, and then just now you got a resource that you can reach out to.
Yep. And if you just throw this one thing, if you're doing internet research, make sure you know what state that attorney or whoever you're getting information from is in, because like I said, each state is a little different.
Right.
And so what could be true in Arizona may not be true in New Jersey. So
look, every county, my wife is an attorney. She says every county is like a different state.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
They have all different bars, and there's an old boys network, and you've got it state to state. So it's very specialized. And back to your point, you need somebody that does this and knows about this. And at least if you watch his stuff, you'll have a better idea. So you're more informed. So you know how to ask the right questions. You know if they know stuff. And so this has been wonderful in terms of, I think we gave them a lot of knowledge. I folks, y'all to list this more than once. You should share this. I'm sure somebody that's dealing with this. You need to forward this to them so they have a resource, so they can begin to know how to think, to know what to think and what to, because you just don't know what you don't know. So Aaron, I just want to thank you again for sharing your time with my listeners. You dropped a lot of gems, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Curtis. I really appreciate you today.
My pleasure.